show you behind these walls. Basically miles and miles of specimens.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
And
kind of-
here's some of them.
That's like the Library of Congress.
It's, you know, we've got like 1.5 million specimens, and I think somebody like the Field Museum or the Smithsonian has far more than we do, but for our ornithology collection, for our bird collection, we're really happy with, you know, like the breadth of our collection.
Have a lot.
Yeah, so we teach museum skills here. So a lot of these are undergrads learning how do you curate a collection like this. Scientists and researchers around the world will look in our database, see what we have, and request different things for different purposes of study. They might be doing DNA requests. They might be doing measurements of feathers on birds to talk about molt.
So who do you link with for the museum studies part?
That would be our staff here at the, I guess technically, this is where it's like, technically they work for...
They don't work for Cornell. They don't do curation, I don't think. Museum. I'm curious, that's
I know, I mean our collection staff here. So we've got at least 4. We're actually in the process of interviewing for another one for ichthyology, which you'll notice. Fish. So the majority of our collection is fish. We have one of the best freshwater minnow populations in the world. Little fun fact. And our holdings are vast, so if you think if it has a backbone, it's probably here. We've got whales, we've got orangutan, we have the lush sharks, and we have birds. So like I said, our bird collection is not as big as something like you'd think the Smithsonian, but it is very representative, and we're really proud of that. So students use these collections when they're learning methods. So they'll come and they'll learn methods. That includes skinning, mounting, preserving specimens. This is Jen. She was one of our past illustrators. Like I said, our illustrators, artists, all kinds of other occupations of folks come to use our specimens as well. So it's really, really neat.
So the illustrators, they take the dead bird and they see and they paint it?
Yes, absolutely. So they can study color, they can more easily see in life, in real life,
right.
What this bird looked like, how it was arranged and put together, than from a field guide. You know, that was somebody else's interpretation. This is a primary interpretation.
That's why they have medical illustrators too. Because, you know.
Oh, and we've got some people doing some things. So,
What happened? I'm sure he died. I'm certain.
So,
But you heard the name.
I do know the name and I've seen it, so just,
Yeah.
I love this. This was one of our undergraduates doing research on eyelashes of birds. Some birds have them, some birds don't. So what did they find? The ones that have them tend to be the large birds, terrestrial or aquatic, or just the beautiful scientific visualizations that they can do as undergrads, you know?
Yeah.
It just blows my mind.
Just
when I
like
was
me. Right.
as an undergrad, I was not presenting papers at conferences and doing wonderful
We've got that link today.
Absolutely. So our evolutionary biology lab, where we do the DNA and the centrifuging, is back this way. And I'm going to take you over to our bioacoustics and our Macaulay library.
Okay. Macaulay is famous. Macaulay.
Oh, good.
I'm very interested in I love libraries. So I used to love libraries.
Well, I have already, I'm going to disappoint you. It's a library of sounds, right? It's a library of data. So it doesn't look like
A library.
our Alden library upstairs. We do have titles and actual books in ornithology, and that's a wonderful place to just sit and absorb, and sometimes I work from there. It's so nice.
Well, here it is. Wow. I know that name, but maybe just.
Yeah, I think Margaret's been with us maybe 4 years, and Charles Dargy had just retired. He was our collections manager for, oh gosh, 30 years?
How much does it cost to just join the living bird, to get the living bird?
Yeah, $44. So we want to keep it accessible. And people are
That's a good thing to know, because I don't know the name.
Oh, absolutely. We do gift memberships all the time.
Sure.
And then a lot, you'll see a lot of Charlie Harper work. So Charlie Harper was an Ohio illustrator and artist, and just had a minimalistic take on birds, and birds were part of his life early on. I love his work. Our logo, that little sapsucker, is based on his work. And he did a poster for us, gosh, maybe back in the 70s, just for the sapsucker roots, and I love that one too. So.
The name, how did the name sapsucker roots?
Oh, great question. And that was Doc Allen, our founder, and Fuertes, the illustrator, chumming around together going birding. And when they were birding this property back in the day, they found the first nesting sapsuckers in the county. So they would tell each other, like, wherever you go, hey, the sapsucker woods, let's go there. So that's how it started. And then you'll notice, you know, the development that happened, all the houses that are around our property. I think they were developed probably in the 60s and 70s. And the road names, it's Sanctuary Drive, Cardinal Way.
Yes, I did.
There's like Meadowlark Avenue. So I love that little tie to the geography. And a lot of our folks actually live very close. You can walk to work. It's a really great perk of being out here. Oh, they changed the posters on me. So a lot of what we do is listening. Listening makes a lot of sense when you think about birds. But what surprises a lot of people is that we listen to a lot of other types of critters. That includes everything from forest elephants. If you can imagine not being able to find an elephant, it's actually, there's a population in Africa, forest elephants. They're really hard to see. They're really hard to find, which means they're hard to manage and conserve. And so we set up a lot of listening devices that listen in real time and help those managers manage those populations. So they know where they're going, they can know the movements of the herd, and they can also hear things like gunshots, so poaching. So they know how to react.
Into Africa, then.
Oh.
Or India, or any of them.
We either put it on your list.
Oh, sure. That's one thing.
Yeah.
I'm gonna keep this.
Oh, good, please
Stop.
do. Yeah.
Yeah? No. Please, thank you.
So the Macaulay Library, like I said, the world's largest collection of natural sounds and media. It's openly available for anybody. You can go home and open up our resource and find photos from whatever bird and whatever part of the world that you want to see. So if you're a scientist, it's a hugely available resource for your work, for your studies. We have people who compare songs, bird song. They might compare it over geography, they might compare it over time, and they're able to do that research and answer those questions and see change in those birds because of our archive. So how did it start? You may wonder. Dr. Allen, our founder, was known as the bird guy here in Ithaca, rightly so. And I think a large part of his mission was public outreach for birds. So education was always a large part of what he wanted to do. So he had lectures. He went on a lecture circuit. One of my members said I was a high school student, and he came to my school, and he did a presentation for us. So, what a cool guy that he was doing that in the 30s. But back in the day, movies went to talkies. They went from being silent films into talkies. And Ithaca, of all places, was vying for Hollywood with who would be the motion picture capital of the United States. So actually down in Stewart Park in Ithaca, at the end of the lake, was the Wharton studio. So where a lot of these movies were being turned out. So you can go back in movie records and find some of these early movies that were filmed all over Ithaca. If you think about it, like we had waterfalls, we had cliffs, we had lakes. If you think about filming anything, they didn't have to soundstage it. They could do it out here in real life. So the movie buffs down at Stewart Park said, we now have the technology to record sound. We want to pair it with the visuals of our movies. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry.
No worries, it's all good. Very casual bunch. So they said, we need natural sounds. We need, I don't know, birds. Who are we going to call? And everybody's like, oh, there's Doc Allen. They call him up. So I imagine him sitting at his desk, and he gets this call that's like, can you help us go find some birds? We're movie people. And he said yes. I think about all the calls, probably faculty are like, no, what? I don't know what that is. But he said, yeah, okay, let's go figure this out. So they met up, and he kind of learned what they wanted. So they went in Stewart Park with this new movie equipment, this sound recording equipment, and he helped them find the birds. So the very first birds ever recorded, that footage, that is here. It was, one of them was a rose-breasted grosbeak, one of my favorite birds, singing. And Doc Allen was able to help them get that. So, you know, I imagine he spent time with these movie people, and you know, they were happy with what they got and they moved on, but something stuck with him, and he said, this is a tool I need. This is a tool that science needs. So that was kind of the beginning of it. He and a bunch of his grad students, Albert Brandt was one. Albert Brandt was like on Wall Street and, you know, had like personal wealth as a young man, and then was like, I don't want to do this. I want to be an ornithologist. So he left New York and he came up here and studied under Doc Allen. And thanks to his personal wealth, he was like, oh, we need to make recording equipment. I can foot the bill. I can do that. So it's just a really neat situation. So that first recorded species was 1929, which I like to think the year my little house was being built on East Hill here in New York, in Ithaca, was when they were capturing that first rose-breasted grosbeak on film. By 1930, Allen and his undergraduates and his grad students were going cross-country with their own recording equipment, hell-bent on recording ivory-billed woodpecker, species at the brink. Species they already knew, if we don't get these on film and recording now, we're gonna lose it. We're never gonna have any example of it. So we've got footage of ivory-billed woodpecker here in the Macaulay Library. We've got early footage of so many things thanks to them that, you know, within a year or 2 years they had their own equipment, they were making amazing strides, which we're gonna see some of the equipment. So come on in. And they might be having a meeting, so we'll just do a walk-by. Oh, you get to see some of the equipment. Hey, Andy. This looks like movie making stuff. All right, guys, what you doing since we interrupted you?
Well, Meg and I are just about to head to South Carolina, so we're packing up our gear. We're gonna be filming some black rail research, and it's kind of fitting into this broader effort that we've been supporting on salt marsh in the southeast states. So kind of an initiative with a whole bunch of partners and sort of 4 states, from North Carolina through Florida. So we'll be in South Carolina for this next week. Just kind of.
Are you students at Cornell?
We're staff here. We're the 3 of us are working in the Center for Conservation Media.
Oh, okay.
And yeah.
Kind of a standard field kit.
We travel really light.
I know, you guys are really good at this.
So you are taking the birds you're following the birds or any particular animal? What is it?
Yeah, there's a particular bird called the black rail that is very highly endangered and disappearing very rapidly. We're going down to sort of film with a group of local biologists who are with the state agency down there and Fish and Wildlife Service, and they're basically doing a lot of work to sort of manage habitat for this species.
So that this species doesn't become extinct.
Exactly, yeah, and this is one that's very, very susceptible to sea level rise and is kind of on that brink of extinction, at least in this Atlantic subspecies is in pretty dire straits. So they're doing a lot of work on the ground to kind of manage water levels just so to kind of match what the birds need.
What are you hoping? Like, what's on your shot list?
That's a good question.
Yeah, it is. Well, so we're not filming the black rails on this one. They're basically invisible, impossible to see. It's a much deeper effort to film the black rails. We're doing just kind of a quick week of following the biologists that are doing the work. So they've got camera traps out in the marsh that are just out there to monitor for black rails. So we'll kind of be sort of supporting this partnership of people. It's biologists, it's private landowners, it's land trusts that are all kind of collaborating on creating space for the birds. So we're filming that dimension of it this time.
Very cool. So you're not gonna be buried in sand. You're not like
Not
head to toe
too much
down
this
all
time.
the fuzzy
Yeah,
stuff.
this time's gonna be a little lighter on
Easy.
the boots we have to pack.
Yeah. Hip boots, not full waders.
Yeah.
Well, if you live in Ithaca, you're used to boots.
Yep.
So, snow, and,
Totally.
Well, thank you. That's actually
Yeah,
perfect
you're
because we
welcome.
just talked about, you know, the evolution of sound recording, and
Yeah.
Doc Allen and his grad students like going across doing their species on the brink.
Awesome.
So
Yeah.
here you are, continuing that.
Continuing that.
Let's go.
Yeah.
The synergy.
Scientists from all over the world comes and has to be processed. Much like the specimen, the physical specimen that we saw, metadata goes along with any kind of sound recording. So we want to know, who took the recording, who took the video, who took the photo, where were they? Is there any kind of behavior? So that scientists, decades from now, will be able to go through the Macaulay library and get exactly what they want and exactly what they need. Yeah. So this is
Sonora Amazon.
really neat. Yeah, and a lot of times, like, we do go on expedition to fill in holes in the collection.
Oh, it's like Amazon? They went to Brazil?
And I saw.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so they're doing sound recording, filling in any holes.
In the Arizona.
And having too much
No,
fun.
it's not Arizona, it's Amazon. It's Brazil.
I see it
Brazil,
now.
Colombia.
Yeah, I see
Mhm.
it. I didn't read out. I was thinking Sonoran Desert, but that's Sonora. You're right.
And there you go. So yeah, quiet editing room, storage. A lot of the original real equipment is back in an archive, so it's a cooled, climate-controlled place because media degrades, like a lot like the physical specimen. Media also degrades, so we're constantly changing, upgrading, digitizing. I won't say that we still don't get shipments of some kind of reel-to-reel film that was like, hey, my grandpa had this, it's all hummingbirds, like, here you go. So it's some awesome challenges that the scientists here have. There you go. There's Amy in the equipment room. The door's never open, so I never really get to see what's in here. I love the brown pads and sleeping pads. That's my favorite. That's like reality right there. So much like the library, like this checks in, it checks out, it goes all over the place.
Nice.
There you go, and thus concludes our very quick tour. I'm serious, come back anytime. There's so